Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome into a new edition of Daily Faceoff Live. We are streaming live on the Daily Faceoff YouTube, and the show, as always, is a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, Carter Hutton, did you make it through that whole World Series game last night?
I hate to admit it, but I fell asleep, buddy. It was just after. Well, I'm in Eastern time, though. Give me a break here. I'm a dad. I'm knocking on 40's door here, but I made it late. And I'm glad I went to bed because I was hurting and I would have been tired this morning. But I watched it live this morning. I didn't check my phone, and to the just utter heartbreak, Ty.
Yeah, that sucked. Mountain time zone, a little bit easier. I was still in bed before 1 a.m. But yeah, tough one to watch. You sit there and grind out 6.5 hours of baseball just to watch your team lose. Not exactly a ton of fun. That's the equivalent of they basically played 2 full games. So that's the equivalent of like a hockey game going to a third overtime. Like, that'd be crazy in a Stanley Cup final.
Oh, it was insane too. And just the substitutions, how many players got used, it went down to the bare minimum. What a game. I'm glad it wasn't an error that won it. You know, Freddie Freeman would just add to his storyline. So that's it. Let's move it on to hockey. I can't take it anymore, Ty.
That is a good idea. I agree with you on that. We're going to be joined by Jeff Marek for our big segment today. And one of the things we're going to talk about is the Boston Bruins. And that's actually where you and I are going to kick off the show because they give up a 7 spot to the Ottawa Senators. It's another ugly loss for the Bruins. And listen, there have been some kind of weird quotes coming out of there. It's a tough start to the year. They're 4-7. They're closer to the bottom of the NHL standings than even a playoff spot. But it's not good. And the list of things that aren't going well is pretty long. The goal scoring is average. The goals against is putrid, down at 29th in the NHL. Goaltending, Swayman struggling, Korpisalo struggling. Last year with Swayman, it was easy to kind of point to well, he started late in camp because of the contract thing. He's behind the 8 ball. He just never got caught up. The fact that this is another poor start to the season for Swayman now, that's got to be concerning.
It is concerning. You know, for a guy who we talked a lot about training camp, I feel like we beat it like a dead horse, and it was almost like his safety net, right? At this point, it was, well, he didn't have a good start because of training camp, because of this. Well, now you start to look at the big picture of, did they give the contract to the wrong guy? Did they move out Linus Armark, who had a good year, barring a few injuries last year for the Ottawa Senators? We didn't see last night. It would have been nice to see that matchup. But for Swayman now, he has the keys to the castle. He doesn't have that safety net. So I think for him, this is something that is going to be worrisome until he can clean this up. Last night, he faced 24 shots. He gave up 7, right? This is not the goaltending you need in a big game. And when I mean big game, everybody knows there's only 2 games on the docket last night. It's the Amazon Prime game. Boston's been dropping him a little bit. It wasn't like he was overtaxed last night. He's got to be better for the price tag that he makes, Ty, at 8.25. You need better goaltending than that. That's just not going to get it done in this league.
And we've seen teams go with different philosophies between the pipes. Some teams are opting for, the 1A, 1B. One guy's going to play 45 games. One guy's going to play 36 or whatever the 37 would be what the split is. I'm not great at math. But for the Bruins, if you're going to cut a check, 8.25 a year, there's an expectation that Jeremy Swayman's giving you more than just 42 to 46 mediocre games a season. He's getting paid to be a workhorse bulk starter, and he's showing that he can't handle that right now. So the goals against are a big issue. And I had some optimism coming into this year for them because last year, again, everything went wrong. The stuff from Jump Street, they had a bunch of injuries as well. Healthy. I mean, Lindholm's out again now. So I guess you could point to injuries again to some extent, but I don't know. I'm even looking at some of the metrics for the offense, 15th in scoring, and there's an argument to be made that they're actually getting a little bit lucky on the offensive front when you look at their expected goals. So it might not get better for them. That division seems to be good. Are they better than Tampa, Toronto? No. Maybe they can get Buffalo, I guess. But even Buffalo's starting to play some good hockey. I just don't see a path forward where they're going to get themselves back into the conversation here.
Well, even now when Patty pulls up the Atlantic Division, we look at that. We have the Montreal Canadiens, Detroit Red Wings, Ottawa Senators leading the division, where realistically, where Toronto and Tampa are, I don't feel like they stay here. I know Toronto's always really started slow in October, and I think last night is a great point for the Boston Bruins, where you're playing Ottawa. It's a divisional matchup. You're getting the front end of a back-to-back, right? Everyone's on a back-to-back. And they get Levi Merilainen, who's been very porous so far this year. He's had a tough go every game he's played in. And they even play him to having a good game. And he was good at times last night. But again, I just don't think they're generating enough in front of him and making it hard on him. And this is a game where sometimes as a goalie, you play in certain matchups where it almost kickstarts you into your year and you get going. I think last night was a great example of that. And now, big win for the Ottawa Senators, and they get Linus Ullmark fresh, who, we're going to touch on a little bit. I just think for the Boston Bruins, it's disappointing, the way that game went for them, especially on the big stage on Amazon Prime.
Let's talk about the Ottawa Senators on the flip side of that matchup, a 7 spot for them. And, when Brady Tkachuk went down and it was, a couple of months they're going to be without their leader, I kind of winced. I was like, oh man, is this Senators team going to have enough juice to get through that kind of a run without their best player? And even though the goaltending hasn't been great, Allmark's had a bit of a rocky start to the season. You look at who's been contributing for them offensively, and there are a bunch of guys that are a point per game or better. Dylan Cousins, 10 points in 10 games, 6 of them are goals. That trade's looking awesome. You look at a guy like Shane Pinto, who, again, we're not even a month into the season. He's almost halfway to his career high in goals. He's got 8 already on the season. So Pinto, Cousins, even a guy like Jake Sanderson on the blue line, they have a lot of guys stepping up and contributing, and it's got me believing a little bit. The Senators team's above 500.
Yeah, I think, again, the main point here is this is without their leader, their captain, Brady Tkachuk, a guy who leads by example and who's been arguably the best power forward in the game. But that being said, again, now this has got to be tough for Buffalo Sabres fans. You're looking at the success of Dylan Cousins, and he's gone in there and he's found a role and he's fitting in well, where they've got the injured Josh Norris from a trade that God knows why was made. So I think there is confidence too. And again, we're quick to judge teams. We react. We have to process what's in front of us. But this is a team that made the playoffs last year. They've been through some ups and downs. So I think there is a maturity in that room. And then you look at some of those leadership. Yes, you lose Brady Tkachuk, but you still have Claude Giroux. You still have guys that are, around this team that have won, that have been there, that is so important. And then you have guys blossoming into superstars. You look at Jake Anderson. And you look at some of the players that, have fit into this lineup. And for Shane Pinto, I think there's a confidence thing there with him, with his lineup. And Tim Stützle is a guy, don't let him get hot tie. Because as he starts to find the back of the net and he starts to get going, I think this team has a little bit of a cap on them where I don't think we consider them legit contenders. But the way that it's been a little bit murky in the Atlantic, they start to get some confidence and get rolling. It's going to be a pretty dangerous team to mess with.
Yeah, I see people in our YouTube chat starting to ask a little bit about the big names in Buffalo, by the way. We'll touch on that when we bring on Jeff Marek. To wrap up this part and the Senators, though, it was interesting yesterday to see the Senators recall Hunter Shepard from the American League to back up Merrilainen, and they opt to give Ullmark the full night off. So no backup duties, doesn't have to do his game day routine. Do you like that, Huts? Is that something that a guy like Ullmark, who's struggled to stay healthy and play a full season, could that pay off for him?
I think it's smart. I honestly, I think it's really smart. I guess the optics of it, I worry about, when you talk about like load management, when we look at basketball and you have fans going to game to watch superstars, but with the goalie, it's a bit different, right? If he's not playing, he's not playing in that sense. And Levi Merrilainen goes out there and plays great and he finishes the game. But for Linus just to decompress and totally stay away from it. The only other time I saw this was one time we had a game at the end of the year. We had played in Chicago and we had back-to-backs. And the last game of the year was against I was playing for St. Louis and we had a game against Colorado where they actually flew Jake Allen out the day before. I started in Colorado and then he went to Colorado to rest, to be there, and then just to have that game. What he found is it's weird being away from the team, right? It almost feels like you do disconnect. So there is that sense of it. So I'm sure Linus was still at the rink and he was still part of it. So I think it is important because when I look back to that COVID year, we carried 3 goalies. Man, it was beneficial for the guy that needed rest. When you're in a rhythm and you're playing, you just want to play. You can get a little bit of minimal practice in. So having that third goalie is so important. We see a few teams still right now carrying 3 goalies. But I think for a veteran guy like Linus Ullmark, he knows what he's doing. So this is a great play by them, in my opinion.
This would be something that catches on, you think, down the line? Like you're talking with Stolars too, like just giving him days off. And when you're the backup, it's more than just sitting on the bench, right? You still got to go do the warm-ups and the pregame skates and all that stuff. If anything, that part of the day, it might almost be more taxing for you, right, Huts? Because you don't get to be the first guy off the ice and whatnot.
It is, and I always used to joke around that, like, after a game that I had backed up was usually I was more exhausted because you've been there since, and I always used to say that the hungriest position in sports is backup goalie, because you go through the process of, you know, getting yourself ready to play and warming up and doing everything, and then all of a sudden it's mid-second period, you've been sitting there the whole time and you're trying to get some room attendant to go find you some supper, or, you know, you prepared for it as your career went on. But I think it is smart. I just think managing the guys that need to play minutes, and in this condensed schedule where guys are going to play more games with the big Olympic break, and Linus Ullmark, who's a potential, you know, Team Sweden goaltender, if not almost a shoo-in with what they have, it's a little bit worrisome, right? As a guy that had injury history, and with early Levi Marilainen struggles, now all of a sudden you're like, if we walk Linus Ullmark into an injury early in the season, their season kind of hangs in the balance in that point. So I think just being smart and managing that is going to be the way to go. And I think Toronto's doing the same thing with Joseph Woll being out. It is something I think we're going to see more and more. I know there's a chance to carry a third guy for practice, but even the fact to just totally decompress and be away from the game is so important at times.
All right, we get to Jeff Marek. One more thing I wanted to touch on. It was a milestone night last night for Sidney Crosby. Point number 1,700, and he added point 1701 as well for good measure. But a year ago, we had the great chase for Alex Ovechkin, hunting down the all-time goals record from Wayne Gretzky. And it got, you know, at that point, we were kind of thinking, what's the next milestone that someone's going to try to hit? The next milestone race that could fascinate us. And Sidney Crosby potentially pushing for 2,000 points. I think it's a timely conversation today with him hitting another big milestone yesterday. He's also only 22 points away from passing Mario Lemieux for 8th all-time in the NHL's all-time record books for points. So that one will be interesting, but the idea of Crosby potentially getting to 2,000. He's 38 right now. Let's say he's a 90-point player again this year, which he was last year. That'll put him at around 1,780 by the end of this season. He's got one more year on his deal. How many more seasons would he need to like realistically push for 2,000? Is there eventually a bit of a fall off in production? Is Sid going to be someone who wants to play until he's 42, 43 years old to potentially chase a number like this? I would love to even inject some truth here and be like, hey, Sid, do you even care about getting to 2,000? He has so many other milestones and accomplishments and gold medals and Stanley Cup rings. Like, does he care? It's an interesting one, the Huts.
It is an interesting one. It's an interesting argument, you know, where he is at mentally. You know, I think for him on that international stage, you got to view Olympics as kind of his last kick at the cat on that big international stage. But knowing these guys, you know, they go and play world championships, you know, him and Marc-Andre Fleury and over there, they love the game. But my only concern is, as the Penguins, where they're, you know, where are the Penguins at the end of the year? And what pieces get moved? Does that start to hurt his production as they start to drop off? And it's a little struggle to score goals as much as they have. You know, it's his 498th career multi-point game last night, which is so impressive, right? He just passed Mario Lemieux for the team record in that sense. But one thing I will tell you is he is an absolute freak when he's in the gym and the way he takes care of his body. So as you start to look at technology and the way that he's taken care of himself his whole career, what team wouldn't want to add him as a second, third liner? Or, you know, if the Pens do drop off, I still think it'd be very weird to see him outside of a Pens uniform. But if he does go to a team that is better and he's in a better slotted role, maybe that point production stays up for a few more years. So I think 2,000 isn't totally out of the question for me, Ty.
It'd be pretty cool. Another interesting milestone for Sid. He is 54 points back of Steve Yzerman. And if he passes Yzerman this year, Crosby will hold the record for the most points by a player in the same uniform. Like, everyone who's above Yzerman on the list split time with other teams. Like, Gretzky put up 1,669 with the Oilers. Like, everyone above there never got to a high mark with just one team. So kind of a cool note there. If he gets 55 more points this year, it'll be the most points any player's ever gotten in one uniform in the NHL. So maybe that's another fun milestone for Crosby to hunt down this season. But we threw it up in the YouTube chat there. Will Crosby hit 2,000 points in his career? Everyone's kind of saying yes, 75% yes. So we'll get you the results of that poll after our big segment. But for now, let's get to our friend Jeff Marek from The Sheet. It's brought to you by Uber Eats. Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day deals on the app. From game day eats to paper plates if you're hosting, to all the ingredients you need to make your favorite game day dip. Before, during, and after the game, Uber Eats is assisting every fan's hockey experience all season long. Always a pleasure to welcome our friend Jeff Marek in from the sheet, and
Hello.
you're our resident hockey historian. What do you make of is Crosby going to be the kind of guy who hangs on till he's 43 to chase something like that?
I think we all think so, right? Because he's, 24/7, 365 days of the year, hockey, hockey, hockey. First of all, it's a great story. Time is still, last time I checked, undefeated. Time's an amazing thing. Coaches always talk about consistency and showing up every day. Who shows up every day and is consistent and always has been and always will be? Time. And time defeats everybody. And I think that's probably the only thing that would knock Crosby off. The interesting thing to me with Crosby, just hearing your conversation about him, is we're kind of watching something interesting happen here with Sidney Crosby. And we're going to get to a point where there's going to be an intersection. Okay, and the intersection is going to go like this. What happens when Crosby is confronted with the question of what's more important to me, loyalty or competition? And right now, the Pittsburgh Penguins are a competitive team. Third place in the NHL, 7-2-1 record. All of a sudden, Crosby and Malkin are top 5 in scoring, as we all predicted. But we're going to find out here what is more important to Sidney Crosby. Because I don't think anyone expects the Pittsburgh Penguins, like if they do make the playoffs, that's great and awesome for them, but that's found money. We're going to find out what's more important to Sidney Crosby, loyalty or competition and chasing another Stanley Cup. And the other question is, does the Olympics quench that thirst for competition? The only person who knows that answer is Sidney Crosby. That's why still to this day, he remains one of the most interesting players in the league. And the fact that him and the Pittsburgh Penguins are doing this right now, to me, is nothing short of spectacular. And it's fun to watch. And if you're Kyle Dubas, as much as you have a plan for how the season is going to go and what you want to do with the Penguins, LBJ, I think it was LBJ, had a great line about plans. He said, plans are useless, but planning is everything. And the idea is that you have to go into every situation with a plan, but then you also have to be prepared to say this plan is useless based on what's just happening, right? It's the old Mike Tyson line. Everyone's got a plan to beat Mike Tyson until they get punched in the face, right? It's the same thing. Plans are useless, but planning is everything. So if you're Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins find themselves, I don't know, a couple of points out of a playoff spot come trade deadline time, what is it? Are plans useless, or is planning everything? If you're Kyle Dubas, do you stick to it, or do you say, given what Crosby and Malkin Letang have meant to this organization, not that we're necessarily going to add at trade deadline, but we're also not going to subtract? Is that the decision that Kyle Dubas makes come trade deadline time? A lot of hockey before then. It's a fun ride, but if this continues, it could be a really, really interesting and perhaps uncomfortable conversation come trade deadline time.
I feel you. I think, obviously there's so much to take in there, and this whole Crosby story era has been unbelievable. And him doing it all in the same jersey is important to me. But I want to change topics here, Jeff, and I want to get into the Utah Mammoth.
Okay.
You had a chance to chat with Bill Armstrong the other day. And again, this is a team sitting on top of the Central Division where, we thought this team, I think everyone, as we predict in the media world, as we analyze, we thought this was a team that's going to take a step forward. And they've taken a big step forward with their youth, with their talent, their goaltending. Where do they go from here? Is it status quo, or are they just letting these young guys run with it after you talk to Army?
I don't think that Bill Armstrong is done for 1 second. I fully believe that if Aaron Ekblad would have gone to market, Utah would have been one of the teams knocking on his door. I mean, I think we all would have thought that Detroit would be on that list too, but I really suspected that Utah would offer him big money. And all of a sudden, your top pair is Aaron Ekblad and Mikhail Sergachev. It's the uniting of the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Would make for quite the story. But I don't think that Bill Armstrong is done. I think that right now, perhaps more so than ever, he's looking at, this murderer's row in the Central. And listen, Dallas is going to be fine. We all know that about Dallas. Colorado is still going to be a juggernaut, and the Winnipeg Jets ditto. But I think that, the Utah Mammoth and Bill Armstrong are looking at the division right now and saying, there's probably Minnesota. They can't play 5-on-5. there's maybe even bigger problems with the St. Louis Blues and those two goaltenders. And we saw it last night against the Pittsburgh Penguins, specifically Joel Hofer, is really hard to hit. So if they're going to take themselves out of this, you ask who's going to fill that vacuum. And right now, the Utah Mammoth are the team that's saying, if you're going to leave all these points on the table, we're going to gobble them up like Pac-Man. You want to give up that spot? We'll take that spot. And I don't think that Bill Armstrong is gonna sit back and just say, you know what, it's gonna be another development year for Cooley and Gunther and Jack McBain and all these guys. I don't think so. Dmitry Simashev, I don't think he's looking at that and saying, yeah, we're just gonna sit back and see where the kids go. I think this is gonna be an aggressive general manager and a really aggressive Utah Mammoth team all season long. I don't think they're done, not at all. Do you?
I don't think they can be. Like, when you look at all the young pieces they have, not just in their lineup, but coming up, and then they have their first rounder. Somehow they have accumulated 3 second-round picks in this year's draft. And it's like, they're almost getting to the point, Jeff, where keeping all of these picks is pointless. You don't need more young players coming up.
Mm-hmm.
No, you can't. Last time I checked, it's still 50 contracts. Last time I checked, it's one Stanley Cup given out. They play with one puck, and you're only allowed 50 contracts. Like, at a certain place, at a certain time, you have to take the draft capital and say, we're going to turn this into players. The other thing, and I was mentioning this to Armstrong yesterday, somewhere along the way, and this is where Carter Hutton in this conversation will speak with the most authority. Corey Schwab's done a really good job with goaltenders, with Coyotes, with Mammoth, and then previously, and this is where, Carter, I'm sort of nudging you to get into this conversation, with the San Jose Sharks. He is not a great self-promoter, right? He's not like one of the Allairs, right? Everyone knows about them. But as far as goalie coaches go, whether it's Aiden Hill or Darcy Kemper, like, he's really developed some high-end Stanley Cup winning goaltenders here. What is the secret sauce for Corey Schwab?
You know what? We chatted a little bit about this, and you know what Schwabi was? You know what's funny is he bookended my career. So my first year pro, I'm playing for the San Jose Sharks and the Worcester Sharks in the American Hockey League. And Wayne Thomas was in the NHL, and Corey Schwab and Wayne Thomas would just kind of float around. Very different ends of the spectrum. And then I had him at my last year of my career in Arizona. And you know what I will say about Schwabi? He's a flies under the radar, because I've played for other goalie coaches where every time I would get interviewed, it was like they made the save for me. Like, they kind of discredit you, and they know how to build themselves up. And there's self-preservation involved in a job where you're hired to be fired, right? Your life depends on the draft pick and the goalie you have. So one thing I will say with Schwabi is his detail. He's so detail orientated, whether it's your warm up or everything you do. And what I mean by that is, say if we're doing warm-up glove shots, it's 10 pucks, and it's 10 pucks every time. It's not just a pile of pucks. Whether we're doing stick work, it's 10 pucks. It's just like the little fine details of the habitual ways that he goes about it. And one thing I will say with him is he never fluctuates. And goaltending is a very emotional position, right? Where if you come in and you've had a bad game and you feel that presence, it almost weighs on you more, right? Like, you feel the pressure that he's feeling, where he was very good at deflecting that, just like another Jim Corsi was when I played with him. I would give up 5 or 6, and me and Jake Allen actually joked about this the other night. When we watched him play in Jersey, I texted him poetry in motion, because Jimmy Corsi would always walk in. Whether I gave up 1 or gave up 5, he was like, you were beautiful tonight. It was poetry in motion. And I feel like a goalie coach like Corey Schwab and that calm demeanor really helps out. So I think that's something that gives him, I guess, goalie's value, to answer your question, Jeff. I think that's something that's so important from a goalie coach standpoint and from a goaltending standpoint.
I think Utah's a really interesting team, and we haven't even talked about Clayton Keller, who's probably the best of the bunch and has always flown under the radar. First of all, I'm really happy for Nick Schmaltz, and I know that timing is everything, and he's hitting it early in the walkaway year from the contract, which is always lovely. So we'll see what happens there. But, like, look, man, that second line, like Logan Cooley, Dylan Gunther, and JJ Peterka. I'm not sure if you watched the game on Sunday against Winnipeg Jets, but the score is tied at 2. It's getting late in the third period, and there's a foot race to a puck in the corner, and it's Logan Stanley and JJ Peterka. Logan Stanley, as you guys and everybody watching, listening right now knows, is just a monster of a man, and Peterka physically out wrestles him and gets that puck. It leads to the setup in front, and Gunther scores the game-winning goal. When you have efforts like that from, a skilled guy like JJ Peterka, then you say to yourself, like, we've got something really, really good here to continue that winning streak and stretch it out to 7. It's a fun team to watch. It's a developing team to watch. My only question, I've asked this in a couple of different places, is Ryan Smith the only person in the world who's allowed to be a glass banger and no one will say a word to him about it? Anyone in that organization that'll say, like, I know you own the team, but you might want to, the glass banger thing, you might want to stop that.
Yeah, I think if you pay for the arena, you're allowed to do whatever you want down there. And I love the Dylan Gunther story as well. I mean, being from Edmonton, I've been hearing about him.
You watched him?
13 years old. Yeah, I covered him with the Oil Kings, obviously. Like, this guy was anointed as the next one at a very young age, at least in like the Edmonton hockey circles, and he's living up to the hype. One more I want to quickly touch on with you. When teams start to struggle, the Sharks kind of smell blood in the water, and the Boston Bruins are struggling, and it's leading to people or center ice issues going, oh, Pavel Zacha, Casey Middlestat. Is there a chance things get like really ugly in Boston, though? Could it go deeper in terms of the sell-off, or do you think they're committed to just kind of keeping the Pasternak-McAvoy core intact?
I mean, I don't see why you would. Listen, the one thing that we know about rebuilds, and ask anybody in San Jose and Chicago right now what it feels like, they're awful, right? So I think more so now than ever, and especially with a team like the Boston Bruins, you look at your team and you say, okay, and I still don't think, I think they're close, but I still don't think that they're there yet to start saying we gotta sell more players off or let more players walk away. It doesn't look good. And the one thing that I do wonder about now is, what if you're going to get back into this race and try to get in the playoffs, what clip do you have to play off now for the rest of the season? We keep saying you can't make the playoffs in October, November, but you sure can take yourself out. And the Boston Bruins are doing a good job taking themselves out here. I can't see Pasternak going anywhere, or the organization wanting to cut strings with him. Ditto for Charlie McAvoy, and ditto for Jeremy Swayman as well. And I know that Swayman's taken a lot of arrows lately. And last year, you're right. Like, a lot of it was the reason given was missed training camp with the contract situation. So when I look at goaltenders, both positively and negatively, if goaltenders have, like, if a tandem has similar, if not identical, save percentages, I say that's not just because of the goaltender. Both good and bad. Like Jacob Markstrom would have like a 920 and Dan Vladar would have like a 919. And you'd say, yeah, Markstrom's playing great, but even the backup has really good numbers too. So it's not just about the goaltender. And that's why I look at Swayman and Korpisalo, and they both have sub 900 save percentages. And I look at that and I say, like, those save percentages are more similar than they're different. So it can't just be about the goaltending. It has to be about something else. And we've seen Swayman. I heard the conversation you guys had about Ullmark before as well. When they were winning the Jennings Trophy, Swayman and Ullmark, it was always Swayman that had the big games. He was always a guy that showed up in the big pressure situations. I'll take that game. I'll take that game. I'll take that game. It was Jeremy Swayman's crease when it was the hottest. That's why I don't necessarily have as much trepidation about Swayman as other people might. I kind of look at these two save percentages and say, if both of them have similar, save percentages here, there's a lot more going on than just, the goalies leaking pucks. Does that make sense? You guys agree with that one?
Yeah, I do. I think it does make sense. And even just looking, I'm always peeking at the expected numbers and all that. The expected goals against to goals against for Swayman is like almost identical on Money Puck. So it probably does tell you that he's facing a lot of high quality chances. You're up at the top of the hour with the sheet. Who's coming on the show?
Greg Wyshynski. It's hey man, we got all 32 teams in action tonight, including a very interesting one with JT Miller and the Vancouver Canucks. And listen, it's Greg's first day back since becoming a papa for the third time as well. Nice. And so the first question for any new parent when you're a hockey fan is left-hand shot or right-hand shot. You'll get that answer at the top of the hour.
I love it. And you
go right hand. Go right hand shot. Yeah, 10% of the contract.
There you go. There you go. Jeff, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, boys.
Raise your children to be right shot defensemen or left-handed pitchers, right, Huts?
There you go. Right shot. I'm still worried about this Scully analysis he went over with the Boston Bruins. I'm thinking the one year I had like an 885 and Buffalo and Linus had like a 917. So that was that one's on me. I got no excuse there.
Let's get to our daily face-off inbox question, hashtag askdfo. We got a couple in here from the YouTube chat. All 32 teams in action tonight, including the 2 teams on long winning streaks. You have the Devils and the Mammoth tonight. Just double checking who they're playing. The Devils get the Avs, so that's no small task at all. And the Mammoth are in Edmonton to play the Oilers. Do you like one of them to win more than the other?
You know what? Honestly, I just think the Mammoth. I like the Mammoth right now. I just think the way they're rolling, they're the team for me. I do worry a little bit. I know they're at home, and I think there might be a little bit of a hangover from that road trip. But I just think the Mammoth are a team to believe in right now, especially when they squeaked out that win against Winnipeg with their backup. I think Vejmelka at home is a solid start in that young energy. I think they'll be up for the challenge tonight, Ty.
And then we got another one that is, what team with high preseason hopes are you the most concerned about? And I will take that one and say I think it is the Minnesota Wild. Jeff talked about how they really aren't scoring a ton at 5-on-5. I think that might be a tough year in Minnesota.
Yeah, I agree too. I think the hype was so high. The other one for me, I guess, is maybe we were scarred a bit from last year, was the New York Rangers. I thought there was going to be like a little bit of a bounce back and a team that we missed in the Metro, but those 2 teams have been thoroughly disappointing so far.
All right, let's get to our daily bets for Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365 as we bring in our boy, Pat Puff. Pat, how'd you guys do yesterday? I wasn't on the show, so I didn't get to make a pick.
Well, that's the thing. You guys have been slacking, and I'm sliding on in, although Carter's actually got a couple as well. So Irf didn't hit his yesterday, I don't believe. But I snuck in with my Penguins money line, and Carter hit his over with Boston. Well, just with Ottawa, I suppose.
Yeah, there's a lot of goals there.
Sens almost, yeah, you're right. They did actually hit that over all on their own. Okay, let's get to our picks for tonight. I will go first, and I'm taking a little shot prop parlay action as I do, teasing down a couple of players to get them at numbers that they've hit in 5 straight games. So Jackson Blake has been 2 or more in 5 in a row. Tage Thompson has been 3+ in 4 of his last 5. So knocking them each down 1 from what the lines actually set out. One of the reasons I love the parlay calculator at Bet365, minus 114 on the payout. Pat, what do you got?
I've got Ekholm 2+ blocks and Darnell Nurse 2+ blocks. I think Ekholm's hit this in the last 5, and I don't think Nurse hit this in his last game, but he is pretty into blocking shots lately, and the Mammoth are going to be firing pucks tonight. They're on a heater, and they like to shoot, so I think these guys are going to have to step up if they want to win this game. What about you, Carter?
Ooh, the shots and the blocks, they go together hand in hand, you two. I'm going to go with Emmett Finney, the youngster, with 1+ point tonight. I just think Detroit is generating a lot of offense. I think they're going to come out flying tonight against St. Louis Blues team, who seem to be giving up a lot of points lately. So I look for the youngster to get on the board here tonight.
Yeah, one of the best stories in the NHL in Emmett Finney. Thank you, Pat. Wrapping up the show with a little bit of garbage time, Carter Hutton. And if you go to Elite Prospects, there's a list of trending players, and it's who hockey fans are searching for the most on their website. And the name that's 4th on the board today is Ernie Clement, Carter Hutton, of the Toronto Blue Jays. This video was posted by Avery Chenier on Twitter. And I mean, this is Ernie Clement high school hockey highlights. The guy was a beast. You go look at his numbers, Huts. He played 79 career games in the New York high school hockey system. He had 70 goals in the 79 games. So, again, I love talking baseball right now. I'm all in on it. But the hockey tie-in of Ernie Clement, who knows what could have been a 2-sport athlete potentially.
You know, it's funny. Before we even decided this for garbage time, is I had looked this up yesterday during the game, and I was telling my wife about it, and I was promoting it to my son as well, who he's a hockey player. He loves it, and he's a baseball player. And I was just trying to merge the two, that the cross training is so important for athletes. And it just goes to show you how good of an athlete Ernie Clement is. And last night, though, we could have used a hit from him. How reliable he's been, we could have used a hit, but he is one hell of a player.
Yeah. Yeah, he's also like a scratch golfer too. Like he is truly just an insane athlete. So there you go. If you're one of the people in the chat who hates when we talk about baseball or any other sport, you probably only got a week left of it. So just let me take my moments when I can. But Game 4 of the World Series goes tonight from Los Angeles, and 16 NHL games on tap. It should be an electric night. Steve Peters is going to join us tomorrow to break it all down. So we look forward to that. A big thank you to Jeff Marek for popping by today. Everybody in the YouTube, great stuff. Good job with the likes. Thank you for dropping in some questions as well for Ask DFO. That's a wrap on a Tuesday edition of the show. We'll see you right back here tomorrow at noon Eastern. Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Marek, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.